Hello all, this is Jay from Drunks on the Pond, and I'm here to bring you a new kind of video. If you've been following along with us, you know how much we love the sport of baseball. But now, we're here to bring you information you might not have known. Welcome to our new segment, Behind the Seams. This is something that's been getting cooked up for a while now, and the time has come to officially begin this new journey. And what better way to start than to go back in time? And no, I'm not talking about the 1990s, the 80s, the 70s, or the 60s. We're going all the way back to June 6th of 1849. Before I start this, I just want to say that this has been one of the most hectic couple weeks I've had in a very long time. Looking for information that has been buried for over 100 years, and some information that I just couldn't find. That being said, I'm honored to bring you this information of a man that made a simple yet crucial mistake. Please allow me to introduce Mr. James Alexander Devlin, better known as Jim. Jim Devlin was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which, if it sounds familiar, is where Drunks on the Pond started. There isn't much information I could find about his family and his early years, so unfortunately we'll just have to skip over and jump right into his baseball career. His career took him to 3 different teams. He began with the Philadelphia White Stockings in 1873, then to the Chicago White Stockings from 74 to 75, and finished with the Louisville Grays in 76 and 77. He played mainly as a first baseman with some appearances in right field, but later in his career made the move over to the mound and started pitching. He pitched rather well for his career, leading to a 72 and 76 record, 286 strikeouts, and an amazing 1.9 earned run average. In 1876, Devlin began pitching for the Grays, starting 68 games with an impeccable 1.56 earned run average and leading the Grays in batting with a .315 batting average. Devlin's best pitch was a drop pitch, now known as a sinker, which he may have been the first to throw. In 1877, Devlin, the only pitcher on the roster, threw every pitch of his team's 61 games, the only pitcher to ever do so. So, you would think Devlin being this great of a player and pitcher was paid very well, right? Unfortunately, not enough to stop him from doing one of the worst things he could have done in his career. The Grays, led by slugger George Hall and Jim Devlin, opened up a 4-game lead in the National League pennant race by the middle of August. Unfortunately, the Grays ended up going on a 7-game losing streak, which was characterized by what can only be described as bonehead plays and poor pitching. Sound familiar? You might have heard of the Chicago Black Sox at some point in your baseball following. This was pretty much the Black Sox without the World Series, but we'll save that story for another episode. Anyway, the Grays blew the lead and finished in second place to the Boston Red Caps, who ended up winning 20 out of 21 games to finish the season. Quite the run. After the season, many of the Grays were seen wearing new and expensive jewelry and dining at fine establishments. And we're not talking about Olive Garden. Suspicions arose that the players were paid to lose the games on purpose. The suspicions only got worse after the season as the Grays went back to playing great baseball in the postseason. Here's where it all truly unravels. Infielder Al Nichols, teammate of Hall and Devlin, had received an abundant amount of telegrams. Maybe a girlfriend? Maybe a friend? Unfortunately, neither. Team Vice President Charles Chase, who had actually been informed through telegrams that gamblers were betting against the Grays, but ignored them, opened up an investigation. Do you remember George Hall and the man of the hour Jim Devlin? Well, they confessed to gambling. The telegrams to Al Nichols? They were coordinating games with New York City gamblers Fred Siebert and a man only known by McLeod. The story goes that Siebert met with Devlin in 1876 about a possible partnership between the two and McLeod, where Devlin would lose on purpose. At first, Devlin actually refused the deal. It's been said that after the 1876 season, Devlin began growing desperate due to the owners of the Grays not paying him for the final 2 months of the season, and he was looking for a way to help put food on the table for his wife and his son. Devlin tried in the offseason to move to St. Louis to play for the Brown Stockings after being offered a contract by them. Due to the reserve clause, he was stuck in Louisville, with his pleas of being released falling on the deaf ears of the National League. However, the next year, when approached again by McLeod, Devlin agreed to throw games in the remainder of the '87 season, with Devlin receiving up to $100 a game. Jumping to the end of the year and the end of the investigation, National League President William Holbert decided now was the time to make a stand and make sure something like this never happened again. Devlin, Hall, Nichols, and teammate Bill Craver, who actually had nothing to do with the throwing of the games but wouldn't cooperate with the investigation, were banned from the league for life. Devlin appealed for reinstatement multiple times, but never played professional baseball again. He did play some minor league baseball for a time in San Francisco, New Orleans, and Trenton, where his name wasn't quite as trashed, and others where he played under a different name. Unfortunately, at every stop, he would eventually be found out, and teams would refuse to play against a blacklisted player. According to legend, and featured in Ken Burns' documentary, Baseball, Devlin begged on his knees for forgiveness and pleaded for another chance. Holbert responded by giving Devlin a $50 bill and said, while fighting back tears, "That's what I think of you personally. But damn you, Devlin, you are dishonest. You have sold the game, and I can't trust you. Now go, and let me never see your face again, for your act will not be condoned so long as I live." Devlin desperately appealed to Harry Wright, a very influential figure in the baseball world at the time, for his help to get him reinstated. Wright never responded. Devlin, denied from what he loved, ended up finding work as a police officer, but unfortunately died 6 years later at the age of 34 in 1883 from tuberculosis. He left behind a wife and a son. Jim lived baseball, breathed baseball, and died begging for a second chance to play baseball. It's easy to sit back and judge the man for being dumb enough to do such a thing, but put yourself in his shoes. No paychecks coming in, food running low, and watching the people you love struggle. Baseball has aged not so gracefully over the years, but definitely enough that players now have a fair amount of control over their own careers. In baseball, rules are rules. When you break them, there are punishments to be handed out. Do I believe there needed to be a punishment? Of course. Do I think banishment was the way to go? Somewhat. Honestly, I find it more a shame that the Louisville Grays weren't held more accountable by making sure their players were properly taken care of. Thank you so very much for tuning into this episode 1 of Behind the Seams and listening to me tell the story of a man so desperate he put his own career on the line for the sake of the people he loved most. Baseball has so many great stories that unfortunately have been lost with the time, but I'm going back and digging them up and bringing them back to life the best I absolutely can. As long as baseball goes on, there will be more stories to be told. My name is Jay, and I will see you in the next episode of Behind the Seams. Cheers.